Ladies and gentlemen, it has come down to this. The last week of the eMLB season is upon us, and we have a lot of playoff races to discuss, but we have a lot of people to discuss it this time. It's not just me and JR this time. Tim, who had graciously filled in for JR last week, has agreed to come on again because he did such a fantastic job for us last week. We wanted to bring him back. And hopefully we'll see a lot more of Tim on the eMLB Insider. It might even turn into a 3-person podcast if all of our schedules work out, or at least we'll have a rotation if people can't make it. So thank you, Tim, for joining us once again. Thank you so much for filling in last time. And
glad to be here.
Are you ready to discuss all of the playoff baseball that we have coming upon us down the stretch?
Absolutely.
JR, welcome back. Glad to have your voice back.
Yeah, we're at about 70%, I would say. We're still working our way back. I have to say, echo Andrew's comments. Thanks, Tim, for filling in, and awesome job with the fake freeze.
Yeah,
that was great.
I know that was so.
Are we gonna do this every time now?
No.
Gotta be.
You gotta find the place where people least expect it and start doing the same thing. JR is spot the fake freeze, or is it a real freeze? Yes. But welcome in everybody to another episode of the eMLB Insider. Like I said, this is the last week of the eMLB season. Teams have between 5 and 7 games left, depending on who you are. If you're the Orioles, you got 5. If you're a team like myself and the Cardinals, you got 7 left. But there are plenty of playoff races that are going to come down to the wire, but also some playoff races that have already been completed. So let's go around the league and talk through what has been decided and what has yet to be decided as we talk about an exciting finish to the 2026 season here in the eMLB. We'll first talk about the races that have been completed, and all of them are on the National League side. So all of the National League divisions are decided. You have in the NL East, the Philadelphia Phillies, who are the only team with a winning record currently, have locked up the division at 89 and 67. So they are going to coast and prepare for a division series, more than likely against the Chicago Cubs, being the second place team in terms of record, as the Cubs have locked up the NL Central with a 97 and 58 record. The Cardinals and Brewers didn't really have a chance to get to the division. They've been fighting for a wild card spot. We'll get to that in a minute. And then in the NL West, the team with the best record in baseball, the only team to reach the 100-win plateau, although Houston and Los Angeles and Chicago will probably follow suit the last week of the season, is locked up the NL West. And they are on a 10-game winning streak to boot. So, yeah, they are firing on all cylinders and are going to be a scary team come playoff, as they will get the winner, more than likely get the winner of the wild card round. And then let's take a look at everything else. The American League East has one game between the Orioles and the Red Sox, and don't look now, Tampa Bay is still in it, technically. 3.5 games out. They have 8 wins over their last 10. While the Orioles have 7 losses over their last 10. Boston also lost only won 4 of their last 10. So it seems like a long shot, but Tampa Bay is technically still in it. AL Central, technically Minnesota is still in it at under 500, but they have to have the Indians lose out, the White Sox lose out, and they have to win out. I think is what Attica or someone or GT I think posted that. Like there's the scenario I have to get in. But it's down to 2.5 games between the Indians and the White Sox, and they actually, I believe, play each other in the last series of the season. So if the White Sox can stay within striking distance, that'll be a really good series to watch at the end, although they need to turn it around quickly because they've lost 8 out of their last 10. And then in the AL West, 2 teams that have clinched a playoff spot, but they don't know where that playoff spot's going to be, Houston and Los Angeles. Houston has a 3-game lead over Los Angeles currently, and with 5 to 7 games left, that is pretty solid lead, but crazier things have happened. Los Angeles could still flip into that spot. We even could see a tie for the division like we saw in the AOS last year between the Angels and the Rangers, and I don't think the Angels want to go through that again. But So we'll see what happens there. And then the American League wild card, you have the Angels have already clinched a spot. So if they don't win the division, they definitely get a wild card spot. But the Mariners, Red Sox, and Rays are all within 3 games of each other. White Sox are probably too far out at this point at 5.5 back to be considered for a wild card spot. But hey, again, crazier things have happened. And then the NL wild card, the lead that the Giants had on the first wild card spot has disappeared as they have lost 8 out of their last 10. They're only 2 games up on the Dodgers, who are a half game up on the Cardinals. Brewers are probably on the outside looking in at this point, 5 games back of the Dodgers. Whew, okay, so all that summary. Let's I don't think we really need to talk anymore about the teams that have already made it in, have already clinched their division. So let's go playoff race by playoff race, and let's give our thoughts on the teams that are still in it, what we think is going to happen, and even give our predictions as to how we think the outcome is going to happen. So first, let's just go in order. We'll go to the AL East, where Baltimore is 1 game up on the Red Sox. The Rays are 3.5 back, are still in it. A little more reasonable than, say, the Twins or the White Sox with their 6 games and 5.5 games out. What is going on with the Orioles as they've lost 7 out of their last 10? What do you think's happening there?
I tell you, both the Orioles and the Red Sox really are kind of limping here to the finish line. I think, that's why you see Tampa Bay still hanging around there. And, we like to jokingly give Aiden the business a little bit. But he's definitely found a way to give that talented team a shot in the arm here since taking over. I mean, if you look back at the beginning of the season, a lot of us felt like Tampa Bay was going to finally get back on top of that division and make a run in the postseason. And I think you guys referenced it on the last podcast. Who knows what would have happened if Charles, the former GM, would have been able to steer them all season. But they're still there with a chance. They finish up with 3 games with the Orioles. So if they can, somehow in the next few days, gain a game and a half, something like that, and you go into that final series, maybe they control their own destiny.
If I remember correctly, JR, weren't the Rays your World Series pick?
They were, yeah. I mean, I looked at that team at the beginning of the season, and I mean, I thought they were loaded. Now, I mean, they did just get some horrible news here lately about Doc Luger.
Yes.
Potentially being out. I think it was upwards of 18 to 20 months, which devastating injury for a talented young arm there. That definitely hurts the cause for sure, but. They still have a shot. You're still there breathing. That means you got a chance.
Yeah, I mean, the last month they have looked like the team I think everyone thought they were going to be all season. And of course, the CCP Aiden Pearson coming over has not hurt that either. He's just as good as he was in Atlanta. He's like doubled that.
Yeah,
in Tampa, just been an extreme performance.
It was kind of like a parallel swap though, because you sent over Hamilton Porter to Atlanta, so it's kind of it's not like they really improved a lot by adding Aiden Pearson. If anything, it kind of stayed about the same in terms of talent level, but he's definitely made an impact for sure. But
yeah, I mean, in 45 games with Tampa, you're looking at a guy with an OPS over 1,000, hitting 349 with 14 homers and 41 RBIs. I mean, that is amazing stretch.
At the time, it seemed parallel. Sorry, I need to rephrase what I said. At the time, it seemed parallel.
I in terms of the talent of the players,
correct.
Definitely very even. But he's definitely taken to the Tampa lifestyle there, and really made an impact.
And it seems like he feels at home. Right.
Wonder why that is.
Yeah.
All right.
And I mean, in like Baltimore and Boston, Baltimore, we talked about it last podcast. No Jim Reed, got rid of Connor Seabold. And it's almost like all of the tricks Brendan has used to get them to this point. It's like this team is kind of like finally running out of gas.
And Ethan Knight has not been Ethan Knight at all.
No, he has not. And I mean, I guess we'll talk about it a little bit later, but who's going to be your third and fourth starter come playoff time for them? I mean, it's going to be another set of magic tricks to get deep into the playoffs for this team.
They're definitely missing Jim Reed, who got injured in last year's playoff run. They're definitely missing him this season because their team is one of the teams that relies on pitching as their strength. At least this season. Last season they had a lot more offense because they had the AL MVP over there in Conforto, right? No, not Conforto.
Verdugo, Alex Verdugo.
I don't know why I keep switching those two. I do that a lot. So here's the big question: can Tampa Bay pull it off? Who are they playing down the stretch? Let's see who
they finish up against Baltimore.
So they have 2 against
Tampa Bay,
3 against the Yankees, and 3 against Baltimore.
Yeah.
That's set up for a possibility. All right, who do the Red Sox play then?
The Red Sox have, I think, the toughest stretch here over this last week. They've got I mean, 4 with Houston. I mean, 3 against Toronto is manageable, obviously. But man, 4 at the end of the season against the Astros, that's pretty tough.
Who still have a little bit more work to do on the regular season side, so it's not like Ben is going to be able to pull back and.
Yeah, because he doesn't. You don't want to end up being a 100-win team playing in the wild card game.
No.
Yeah.
That could really.
Houston definitely has something to play for, so they are not going to let up on the gas at all. So, I'd say the chances are pretty good for Tampa Bay to pull off something crazy here. This might even be a little bit crazier than Detroit, Kansas City last year, where Kansas City came from so many games back with Detroit with a huge lead and won it on the last week, won the division on the last series, I believe, of the season. We weren't even talking about Tampa Bay being in the playoff race. Even last episode, a week ago, we were like, where in the world did this come from? And it just shows what happens when you have an active GM that can organize that Tampa Bay has.
Yeah, I thought they just did not have enough runway to if the season lasted one more week, maybe, and now they've still done it.
Yeah. So and we were talking about this in the Discord, talking about what should we do for games of the night for Tuesday and Thursday, and I pointed out Thursday, for all of the last series of the season, there are a ton of matchups that these teams are playing head to head. You have Baltimore versus Tampa. I believe Cleveland plays Chicago, White Sox. Who else? The Angels, I believe, play the Mariners, or at least at some point this week.
The Dodgers play the Padres for some games, I believe.
Yeah, but the Padres have already clinched their spot, so
yeah. But again, you're looking at the Dodgers. They need every win they can get.
Padres are actually playing both the Giants and the Dodgers to end the season.
Okay.
You almost wish they could be like a 5-day sim, so we could get like the first of those last series in, and then follow it up 2 nights later with one of the following ones. But
Kamish has done things like that before, where we're following, getting down to the wire of these playoff races and kind of taking it slow and watching how games develop instead of just focusing on one game of the night. So I wouldn't be surprised if this Thursday, after this Tuesday sim, we see some multiple game actions with playoff spots on the line. But back to the AL East. Give me your predictions. How do you think this is going to shake out?
Who you got, Tim?
Baltimore by that much, and I'm looking at that 3.5, and they finish up against Tampa, and I almost feel like that's going to be one of the Thursday night games that we'll be watching a lot of, and it's just all the marbles. And Brendan is tough to beat mano a mano on a stream.
True.
There's a real skill to managing game by game, and he has that. So,
And one thing that we didn't discuss, and this is going to feed into my prediction, is that Baltimore plays Pittsburgh for 2 before going into the series against Tampa. And I think essentially at this point, Baltimore just has to win one of those 2 games. Even if Tampa, well, if Tampa sweeps the Yankees, that'll put them in a good position. But even if Tampa drops 1 or 2 of their games against the Yankees, Baltimore's in a good position to finish it out. If it was 1 game closer, if it was 2.5 instead of 3.5, I'd say Tampa Bay gets it. But I think I'm agreeing with Tim here. Baltimore will barely win. I think Tampa wins the last series, winning 2, if not all 3 of their games. But I think because Baltimore has the Pirates for 2, who have been kind of limping lately, after just my Cardinals just swept them their past series, they're on a downswing. They're one of the lower teams in the league. I think Baltimore uses that to get the games lead that they need to go into that last series. And I think Boston's going to have their hands full with Houston, and they're not going to make an impact.
Right.
I agree with you guys. I feel like Baltimore hangs on, mainly because of that Pittsburgh factor, and also, you look at it, with them only having 5 games left versus Boston's playing 7, Tampa Bay's playing 6. You can almost look at it as like they have an extra win kind of in the clubhouse, heading into these last couple games. I mean, Cody's Pirates, a talented young team, could very well surprise us there. But again, if we're looking at this as a prediction exercise, just knowing you're already going into it a game up, and you at least have those couple games before Tampa, I feel like Baltimore hangs on.
So here's the difference here. If let's just say Baltimore wins 1 out of 2 from Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, if they sweep the Yankees, they are still 2 games out. And even they would have to sweep the Orioles in order to make it, because if you only win 2 out of 3, that only gains you 1 game back.
Right. Exactly.
So Tampa Bay's got it's possible, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened, because Baltimore hasn't been playing well, so they might lay an egg against Pittsburgh. But I think 3.5, like I said, if it was 1 game closer, 2.5 instead of 3.5, I would actually give the edge to the Tampa Bay, but I think it's just going to be out of their reach.
Yeah, if you're Brendan, you got to feel like if you get 2 wins in those 5 games, you're in pretty good shape.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the AL Central, which it's technically Minnesota is still in it, but everything has to go right for them in order to make it. But regardless, it looks like it's down to the Indians and the White Sox, 2.5 games between them. Actually, let me go to the pennant chase screen so we can get a better look here. That's much better. I should have done that for the first one. The Indians have the advantage. They have a 2.5 game lead. They will play the Twins for 3 and then end out with 3 against the White Sox. All of them at home, by the way. Whereas the White Sox will play 4 at home against the Angels, who are also playing with something on the line, and then end out with the 3 against the Indians. So what are you guys' thoughts on this race between the Indians and the White Sox?
Oh, as much as I would love to see Ed in the playoffs, that is a lot of work that they've got to do.
It is.
You've got to hang on against it. Basically, it's the same situation like Tampa is in the East. You've got to make up a ton of ground before that series with Cleveland starts to have a chance. Otherwise, you've got to run the table, and I don't know. I'm hard pressed to see that happen.
And the White Sox have to play against the Angels with the second best record in the American League right now, who are trying to still fight for a division title because they don't want to play in a wild card game. So the Angels are not going to be letting off the gas, actually even more so than the Astros at this point. So,
and Cleveland will pitch their top 3 pitchers against Chicago.
Absolutely. And the White Sox kind of put themselves into this situation because they And they got, not only did they get swept by Houston in 3 games this past week, but they dropped 2 out of 3 against Kansas City. And that's a team that you needed to take at least 2 out of 3 from in order to have a chance. They also lost 3 out of 4 from Detroit the week prior to that. So they've been stumbling as of late. And I think that stumble, especially this past week where they only won 1 out of their 6 games, I think that's going to be the nail in the coffin for them. I think that the Indians, because of the fact that the White Sox have to play a really difficult team in Los Angeles and at least stay within striking distance, I don't think they're even going to be able to stay within striking distance.
Yeah, I mean, that losing 8 out of 10 there in that stretch for the White Sox, I mean, that is just a killer. I mean, no shame in losing 3 to the Astros, of course, no. But to lose 5 out of 7 to the Tigers and Royals, it's just not something they can afford to do at this point in the season. And again, when you take a look at schedules and, you're talking about who they're playing, I mean, even if, they split the 4 games with the Angels there, you're still looking at, they have to take 2 out of 3 from the Indians, probably even just to tie.
And that's assuming the Indians lose 2 out of 3 to the Twins.
Right, exactly.
And it's been like this in the Central all year long. These teams they're all right there together, talent and structure-wise. Yeah. They've been just beating up on each other all year.
Most competitive division, eMLB, trademark.
It's kind of like you could take the pieces and put them all in a jar and jumble them around, and they'd come out in a pretty different order if you just did that every month.
Yeah. I mean, it's
if we could combine those 5 teams, there'd be a juggernaut.
With our powers combined, we could take down the Astros, maybe. Maybe. But yeah, I think we're all in agreement here. I think that it's a matter of the fact that the White Sox have 4 against the Angels, and that's going to be too hard of a mountain to climb when you're 2.5 back. If they end up within striking distance at the last series, they will have a chance. So we'll see how the first series goes for both of these 2 teams. But unless the White Sox turn around their stumbling as of late, it's looking like it's the Indians' division to lose at this point. All right, and then the 2 top teams battling it out in the American League West. We've got the Astros and the Angels with 3 games apart between the 2. Astros end the season with 3 against Texas away, and then the series we talked about earlier, 4 against Boston. And then Los Angeles has the 4 against the White Sox that we mentioned, and they end the season with 3 home against Seattle, who is fighting for a wild card spot. So this division has been the hottest, probably the most talked about division race all season between these 2 teams, as they have been 2 of the top teams in the league all year. Only recently have the Padres and Cubs overtaken the Angels in terms of their record. Most of the year it's been Astros, Angels 1-2. And this has been a fantastic race all season long. They are neck and neck. As you can see, both of them are 6-4 out of their last 10. And Thomas keeps saying, can you please just lose 1 or 2 so I get a little bit closer? They don't play each other, which I would have been a fantastic series down the stretch if we had those 2 playing each other. But they also are playing teams that are competitive. Like, don't sleep on Texas, even though they haven't played as well this year like they did last year. They still have talent there. Chicago's fighting for something, Boston's fighting for something, and Seattle's fighting for something. So these teams do not have easy games the rest of the way. What do y'all think is going to happen here?
I just can't see the Astros losing enough games for Tampa or for the Angels to be able to overtake them. The Angels have 7 games coming, or no, is it 7 games? Yeah, 7 games coming. Against the White Sox and Mariners. I mean, that's a pretty tough stretch. And even if the Astros only win 2 out of their last 7, that means the Angels have to win 5 of 7 just to tie them. And
yep.
I just think the numbers just aren't in Tom's favor there to pull this one out for the division at least.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it's I wish that the last series of the season had these two teams against each other, because that would have been so much fun to watch with the division on the line. But I think I'm agreeing with you here. With a 3-game lead with 7 games left for both, it's going to be hard for the Angels to basically, they have to rely on the other teams to beat the Astros in order for them to get back in it. And they don't have an easy task themselves with the teams that they have to face.
Yeah, and I mean, in Houston, they played them the last couple of weekends in the season, and Houston lost 4 out of 6 to the Angels. So if they were going to play each other, to your point, the Angels, but even with that, the Angels would then turn around and lose to other teams and kind of give that back.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I mean, I can't. I mean, they're playing on the road the whole time, but at the same time, like Jared said, they just win a couple of games, and that's enough, I think, to get the pass.
Absolutely. So we're all in agreement that we think the Astros are going to be able to hold off the Angels, which means the Angels will more than likely have the second best record. Actually, I think they probably locked it in already. They're like 10 games ahead of the Orioles. Mm-hmm. So the Angels will have the second best record in the AL, but be stuck with a wild card game against one of these teams. Segue. Either the Mariners, Red Sox, or Rays. I'm not going to. I think the White Sox are too far out at this point, so we'll focus on the Mariners, Red Sox, and Rays. Mariners, we have not talked about yet. We've talked about the Red Sox and Rays and what they have left. The Mariners have 3 against Oakland with the worst record in baseball, and then they end with 3 against the Angels. All of them away. So, Tim, where are you looking for this last wild card spot between the Mariners, Red Sox, and Rays?
I'm thinking Red Sox, primarily because they are at home for this entire week.
So you don't think that the Astros will knock them? Because that 4 games against the Astros is going to be tough to get through. I
don't think they have to beat them too badly. I mean, they're playing Toronto for a 3-game set. I see them being able to handle that. And if they take a game or 2 against LA, I think that should be enough.
All right, JR.
The Red Sox, they've definitely been really good in sticking around with this, especially with the way they're going in 1-run games here. I am going to lean toward taking the Mariners to hold on to that spot. It's looking like, you mentioned that they're playing the A's. It's looking like, based on their pitching schedules, they're going to get 2 starts out of Alejandro Rosario over this last week. He's been the best starter for them all season, which I think will help them out. I mean, they definitely are going to miss Justin Fuller. He pitched pretty well for them this year, and his BMX biking at the end of a playoff chase. Somehow, I feel like there's going to be a fine there and a stern talking to in the off season for him. So that is going to be a factor if they do make it into the playoffs, and then they try to make a run in the postseason. But I feel like they are going to be able to get it done, on the strength of Rosario being able to get a couple good starts in there during this last week, and the fact that they could very easily go through and sweep the A's in these 3 games.
I just found something even more interesting about Fuller. He's got 2 injuries right now. He was already injured with a sprained elbow at the time of said BMX incident.
Oh, boy. Oh, Justin. What are you doing?
That's definitely going to be a team fine right there. Man. He was injured on 9/11 with a sprained elbow. His recovery time from that was unknown. So he already wasn't pitching.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then he got hit with the concussion on September 26th.
GM Ryan Hetzer is not going to be happy with Justin here in the offseason.
It sounds like Fuller's trying to bring back the Jackass series all by himself.
And he's trying to plan for his career after baseball.
His nickname from the 1.0 days is the Phenom. We might have to change that a little bit.
Change it to the Jackass.
Yeah, Justin Knoxville.
Make it so.
All right, Commish, we're counting on you to put that in the next file. Justin Knoxville. All right. But that's an interesting point you brought up, JR, is that they are lined up to potentially have who did you say pitching twice?
Alejandro Rosario.
Rosario.
He should be pitching their first game coming up here against the A's, it looks like. So then that would have him make one of the starts later against the Angels.
But here's the thing. Here's the question. Does that mean if he needs to start both of those times in order to lock up the playoff spot, more than likely he is not going to be available for the wild card game. So
Correct.
if you're the Mariners, you want to sweep the A's, lock in that wild card spot, hope Boston stumbles a couple of games so that you don't need him in that last series against the Angels, and you have that wild card spot locked up so you can have your ace going against more than likely the Angels. It's funny. They're ending the season against the Angels, and they're if they make that wild card spot, they're going to go right back to LA and play them for the wild card. They're going to play 4 straight games.
Yeah. I think you would probably have him at least pitch a little bit in that game because, let's say he pitches this Monday game and then, he would pitch again on Saturday. Maybe you have him throw more like a bullpen on the mound or something, knowing that, coming up on, say, Tuesday the 6th, you would have him for a wild card game.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how Hetz handles the pitching rotation with a wild card spot on the line. Also thinking ahead to who am I going to have pitch that wild card game, because it is not going to be easy going up against more than likely LA, but possible. If it's between Houston or LA, pick your poison there. It's going to be a tough game either way.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's imperative that for the best chance of success for the Mariners, they need to sweep Oakland, take advantage of playing the team with the worst record in baseball, and use that as a springboard to get into the wildcard game, save your best arms for that wildcard game, and not worry about the teams behind you in the Red Sox and the Rays. Now, they do have one extra game already played, and they got to win in that game. That's why they have a half game on the Red Sox. So at least they have that going for them. So we'll have to see how the Red Sox respond, which hasn't been the best as of late. So it'll be really
interesting. The Mariners have swept the season series against the Angels.
What's that?
Far. They've Seattle and the Angels have each won 8 games against each other. So
even better.
Yeah,
looking really good coming down the stretch. So I'm going to lean towards the Mariners, mostly because they do have Oakland to start out their last week of the season. It's not going to be easy against the Angels, but hey, the Red Sox have to face the Astros, and I think the Rays, just like they are in the AL East, I just think they're too far behind to make up enough ground to hit that wild card spot. But Tampa Bay is still in it for both the division and the wild card spot, so they are definitely going to be a team to watch in this last week of the season. And now the only race that matters in the National League, because all of the divisions are locked and loaded. We have the NL wild card, which last week, this past sim, got really interesting with Tim. You and I were talking last week. We kind of figured the Giants kind of had that spot locked up. They were well ahead of the Dodgers, Cardinals, and Brewers heading into the last couple weeks of the season. But all of a sudden, they've lost 8 out of their last 10, including dropping an entire series to the team chasing them, the Los Angeles Dodgers, who swept a 3-game series to end out last week, which means that the Giants now are only 2 games ahead of the Dodgers and 2.5 ahead of the Cardinals, with the Cardinals having 1 extra game to play. Giants and Dodgers play 6, Cardinals play 7. And the Cardinals are only a half game back of the Dodgers, who they both had the exact same. No, they did not. Dodgers played 1 more game this past week, and Dodgers picked up 1 extra win. But other than that 1 extra win, the Cardinals and Dodgers had the exact same record. JR, why couldn't you have let me had 1 more game instead of taking 2 out of 3 from me? He loves playing the spoiler role. Thank goodness I followed up with a sweep of the Pirates, or else this would have been a lot harder. But I have, as the Cardinals, 4 against the Cubs, who have locked up the NL Central. But knowing the rivalry between the Cubs and Cardinals, both IRL and in this league, as Jake and I have, if you missed the very first game of this eMLB season, don't want to bring up memories on that one, but it was already an intense rivalry from the start. Yeah. I mean, they've already locked up a playoff spot. I already know that they have the better team, so I'm not going to argue that point. Is there 11 games up on me at this point? I mean, they've obviously had the better team this season. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's no denying that they're the better team right now. I'm fighting for a playoff spot, and they're already they would love to be the team that knocks me out of the playoff race, though. So they are probably not going to let up, knowing the Cubs Cardinals rivalries in all senses of the word. So
but you're at home for all 4, though.
I am home at all 4. I'm actually home for all 7 of my remaining games. I got 4 against the Cubs and 3 against the Brewers. And at this point, it's saying that the Brewers aren't even on this list. So I guess that means that they're out, which is interesting. I thought they were 5 back with 6 to play.
I thought
that technically means they have a chance.
Yeah, it should mean
they're not eliminated, but they're not on this list either. They're not eliminated, but they're not on this list. So I don't know. The Giants are going to be playing Tim's Diamondbacks, so Tim could play some spoiler here and finish up with a series against the Padres. And the Dodgers will also play the Padres for the first series of this sim, and then end with 3 at Colorado. I think, honestly, this is the most interesting race because 3 teams are fighting for 2 spots. And you could see a scenario where any of the 3 teams could get into this. Like, the Giants could easily drop out of this race and end up on the outside looking in after having a comfortable lead going into the last few weeks of the season. What are your thoughts?
I think San Francisco and LA, each of them have very winnable series against the Rockies and the Diamondbacks. So that leaves them with 1 series to focus on this week, whereas the Cardinals really have 2 very tough interdivision series to play. But I'm trying to say San Francisco being slightly ahead helps. It'll be interesting to see how much of a spoiler we can play against them, because if we can eat into that lead just a little bit, make them only a game ahead of you guys, that really opens up those last 3-4 days of the season. So
and right now they've only won 2 out of their last 10, whereas both the Dodgers and the Cardinals are on the positive side of their last 10 games. Cardinals are 7-3, Dodgers are 6-4.
Yeah.
So both the Dodgers and Cardinals are looking upward, whereas the Giants are on a downward trend. JR, do you think that continues? Do you think they end up on the outside looking in?
I still feel like the Giants hold on. I mean, they've definitely gone through a rough stretch here, but I still have faith that starting pitching staff is going to be able to hold them up enough, knowing that they have that 2-game cushion there. Of their last 3 losses that were all to LA, they were all 1-run games. So they're all games that really could have gone either way. I mean, even their last loss before that to Colorado was a 1-run game. So, and losing 4 out of 5, those are all 1-run games, even their win. So they've been tight contests. The Dodgers have really specialized this year in winning 1-run games, those tight games. So, they've been able to kind of eke some of those out. But I still think the Giants are able to secure one of those spots. The second spot, I really honestly don't know what to predict there. I mean, both your Cardinals team and the Dodgers team are playing well. It really could be a toss up. I think it's another one of those cases where I really wish that, you guys were playing each other here at some point during this last week to try to decide it on the field. But, in one of those, you have to make a pick moments. I think I lean toward the Dodgers just based on schedules. like you said, the Cubs don't really have anything to play for at this point, but that's still 4 tough games against a really good team. Not to mention, the Brewers, Jay Hill's Brewers club is always a pesky out. So I just feel like there's going to be, in that razor thin margin is going to be on the side of the Dodgers.
Yeah, and all of a sudden the Brewers now show up after I come back to the screen with a 0.1% chance of making it. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, obviously,
what also, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but if the Giants do hold on here and are able to secure that wild card spot, it's looking like they can probably start Jandy Ronson in that wild card game based on the way the rotations are working out, which is huge for them trying to advance past the wild card game to the DS.
Yeah.
So
No doubt.
obviously I'm on the bias side because I'm the team in this. But I want to pull up a report real quick, and that is the was it team by team? Where is it? Team versus team report. And I'm going to give you 2 things. I'm going to give you what I hope will happen or what I think will actually happen. And so, looking at this, I am 5-2 against the Dodgers this year and 4-3 against the Giants. So I technically have a winning record against both of those teams. However, what I hope will happen is that, Tim, your Diamondbacks sweep the Giants. That I somehow take 3 out of 4 from the Cubs, which is not going to be an easy task. And that the Dodgers take care of business, take 2 out of 3 from the Padres, take 2 out of 3 from the Rockies. And I hope that it's Dodgers Cardinals because, to JR's point, I don't want to face Jandy Ronson in a 1-game wild card.
Right.
So that's what I hope will happen. What I think will happen is that it's going to be a Giants-Dodgers wild card because it's going to be really hard for me to take 3 out of... I think I need to take 3 out of 4 against the Cubs. I don't think I can afford to split it because I'm a half game back because I have one more game to play, so I need to make up a win somewhere. And that extra game is on that Cubs series, and I don't think I can win 3 out of 4. I took 2 out of 3 the last time the Cardinals and Cubs played earlier this month, but it's going to be really hard to take 3 out of 4 from this Cubs team. And I think because of that, not only that, but I have to play another team that was in the playoff race up until this point in Milwaukee to end the season. That is going to be really difficult. Not only that, I'm missing my best offensive player in Royce Lewis. And that has shown as I've played JR's Reds 6 times this month. 4 of them have been losses, and I have scored a total of 2 runs in those 4 losses.
We know how bad my pitching staff is.
And I played in Great American Ballpark for 3 of those games. So we know, although to be fair, the games I did win, I blew you out. So
right.
So it's like what team is going to show up this week for the Cardinals? That was the Mariners. So our offense has definitely struggled since losing Royce Lewis. So I think because you lost the Royce Lewis factor, your offense is struggling, and the teams that you have to play are 2 of the better teams in your division. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be able to make the wild card spot. I do think it's going to be Giants and Dodgers, but I want chaos to reign, and I want it to be Dodgers Cardinals and flip the Giants out, who had a comfortable lead in this month. No offense to Sean Paxler, but I just like the chaos. And I don't want to face Jandy or Ethan Candela in a 1-game wild card game.
Yeah, that is
Thank goodness for next season where we're not more than likely not going to have 1-game wild card games.
Yay!
All right. Any last thoughts on any of these playoff races? Or Tim, did you give your prediction yet?
I was waiting, and just while y'all were talking, Brendan FedExed me the coin. Thank you, Brendan.
for those of you that don't know, that is another Joe's on the Pros reference where Brenda has no idea what's going on in college football, and he used a coin to make all of his predictions there. Oh man,
you're pulling
all of our jokes from Joe's on the Pros. I love it.
Yep. I'm a fan. That's the thing. I love the content all you guys do.
I appreciate it.
And unfortunately, the Dodgers won the toss. So,
between the Dodgers and Cardinals?
Yes, between the Dodgers and Cardinals.
Fair enough. Like I said, when the Royce Lewis injury happened, I said I would be ecstatic if I still made the playoffs. So to be in the position that I am now, I am very proud of how my team has performed since that Lewis injury, because he was essentially carrying my team for the first half of the season, him and Benny Rodriguez. And funny thing is, Benny has actually struggled since Royce Lewis went down. I think they had kind of a tandem going there. Yeah. Kind of like JR, how Barrios started fading offensively after Trey Griffey went down. Kind of the same scenario.
Yeah, he had just a horrid month of August after Griffey got hurt.
Yeah. But I am
as
proud.
As much as I disagree with the notion of protection in lineups like that, it plays out now to the park quite a bit.
It does.
A good player goes injured, and the people around him start to suffer.
And not only that, is I've had to go the entire season, well, most of the season without Flaherty or Loaisiga as well. Flaherty just came back, but he is actually still pitching worse than the guys I had to replace them. I brought in Lonsway, who's pitched really well. He's pitched better for St. Louis than he did in Colorado. And then I've had Michael Sanborn and Lewis Thorpe. Lewis Thorpe has yet to lose a game, by the way. He's 6-0 with an under 3 ERA. So my replacements has stepped up big time in the pitching rotation. It's just our offense hasn't done enough to win us more games, but I'm ecstatic to where my team is right now with all of the injuries that we've had to deal with. I'm not saying I would have been competing for the division if I had those guys all season, but I would probably be in a more comfortable spot in the wild card race than this right now.
And considering where we picked everything last week, we're probably all off. And
that's true.
It's going to be a 3-team playoff for 2 spots in game 163 and 4.
Yep, probably.
So.
All right, well, there you have it. Definitely tune in to Kamish's Twitch channel this Tuesday and this Thursday as we wrap up the last week of the eMLB season. It's going to be some must-watch eMLB action as we finalize all of these races. Can the Rays come out of nowhere and capture a division crown? Can the Giants end up losing a playoff spot after having a comfortable wild card lead? What will happen between the Astros and the Angels? And the AL Central, the most competitive division in the eMLB, what will happen with that race? So, with that, I think this is going to be the first time ever, maybe the second time, I think we might have done it one other time, where we have a 3-person power rankings. So this is going to be fun as I switch screens over here. And sorry, Steve, for in the past that I've had your Padres as the same color as the almost the same color as the background, so you couldn't see it. I have fixed that now to where we can finally see where we put the Padres on this list. A little bit lighter of a gray instead of the black background with the brown logo. I also could have switched it to a yellow logo, but I already had
I think he's actually
uploaded.
Like being incognito because he's been able to
kind of going under the radar. I'm sorry,
yeah.
You're the only team in the league with 100 wins. You can't go under the radar anymore.
Only in the power ranking.
Yeah, exactly. So we have the list here. On this order, we are going to have, I'm going to be on the left side. JR is going to be in the middle. Tim is going to be on the right. And Tim, as our guest, why don't you go first with your number 10 team in the power rankings?
All right. My number 10 is a tip of the cap to a team that has been playing extremely well the last few weeks and has made themselves part of the conversation in the American League wild card, and that is the Tampa Bay Rays. There are teams with better winning records. There are teams with better chances to get in. But I cannot ignore the fact of what has been done since Aiden has come over and taken making this team. And to quote another podcast, I'm sure that magic will fade at some point, and Aiden will drop this team back to where it belongs.
Oh,
No, just kidding. Not only his CCP, Aiden Pearson, but also Alex Murray, the real OOTP guru, he's had a phenomenal, his slash line, 345, 393, 453. Pretty good. Pretty good guy there. To what JR said earlier, the Lugart injury hurts, but it's kind of a short rest of the season. Some impact, but not a major impact like it would be if they had to figure this out for a month. And one other thing I'd like to bring up is that we all miss Charles. And to give you an indication of what Charles was able to do, Tampa's AAA team is in second. Their AA team is in second. Their A-plus team is in first. Their A-ball team is in second. Their A-minus team is in first. And they're going to be here for a while. This is a really deep, good organization. And I think we're seeing it with some of the benefits that have been paying off here. So they're raising 10.
All right. JR, what do you got at number 10?
So I have the Mariners there at number 10. They were one of my kind of, I guess you could call it surprise picks at the very beginning of the season to potentially get into the playoffs. They've had a little up and down year. I mean, if you take a look, their offense hasn't really been what I think we all expected it to be. They've had some guys kind of not really get on the same page, get hot at different times, but their pitching staff with Rosario, like we mentioned before, their starting pitching has been better this season. The Fuller injury, like we talked about, we joked, but that's probably hurt him a little bit here during this second half of the month, and could play a role in the postseason. But I still really like the club that Hetz has got there. He made some moves at the deadline to shore up his bullpen a little bit, and a couple other things. So I really still like them a bit and have them coming in at 10.
All right, and for my number 10, I agreed with one of you, and I can predict that Brendan is going to hate me because I am putting the Rays at number 10, and spoiler for the rest of my rankings, that is the only AL East team I have on this top 10 list.
Wow.
Because the Rays are playing really good baseball right now, and the Red Sox and Orioles are not. I have the Red Sox and Orioles just outside of my top 10. So when I looked at these power rankings, I was looking at who is playing really good baseball when it matters most in September, and the Rays are doing that right now, and the Orioles and Red Sox are not. And so, funny enough, with my top 10, I am missing 2 division leaders from my top 10 in the Orioles and the Indians. So the Rays are the only AL East team that I've got on my list. And we'll move up to number 9. Once again, a team that one of you have already talked about. I've got the Mariners at 9. They are struggling, kind of counter to my point that I just made, that the teams that aren't playing well I left off. They've lost 7 out of their last 10, but I think they're in a much better position to make the playoffs and than the Orioles and the Red Sox, and I think just that alone puts them in at number 9. Really not much more to say than that. Then I think they have positioned themselves to make the playoffs better. The Orioles and Red Sox are question marks. They have a lot more questions to answer in this last week of the season than the Mariners do. I think the Mariners have a better shot to lock up their playoff spot than the Orioles and the Red Sox do, which is why I have them in my top 10 as opposed to the AL East teams. JR, who you got at number 9? We'll do this snakes draft style.
So at number 9, I have the Philadelphia Phillies. I I really don't know what to make of the Phillies. I got to be honest. I have kind of been baffled at their performance all season long. Early on in some of our early insider episodes this season, I really didn't give them a whole lot of respect or credit. I still, you take a look at their team and you're like, how are they a team that ran away with a division and is on the verge of 90 wins? But, it is what it is. They ran away with a division and they're on the verge of 90 wins. I at a certain point, I have to give them some credit for that. I don't know that I really think, the eye test tells me that they're the 9th best team in the eMLB, but I have to put them there. I have to put them in here, and maybe they're the type of team that, like this year's real life Phillies, once they get into the postseason, maybe they have a couple guys get hot and they're able to make a run. But I got to give them some kind of credit for running away with that division and dethroning the Nationals.
All right. So at number 9, I have the other AL East team that I'm picking here, and that is Baltimore. Down, I think, 3 spots from where I had them last week. They've been the mirror opposite of Tampa the last few weeks. Still a very good offense. Probably Houston and LA, of course, are head and shoulders above everybody in the American League. And I feel like they're right there with Boston as far as the way the lineup is constructed and the way they get runs across. Where I think they are really struggling, well, the pitching is really struggling. They have 0 depth in their pitching, but their defense is way off of where I would expect them to be, considering what their ratings are. They have just not performed, not as efficient as I would have expected. And the question I asked earlier is, what is this team going to do when we get in the playoffs come game 3, game 4 of a series? But I think because they were able to hold on and win the division in a very difficult year, wanted to give them a little credit for that and put them at number 9.
All right. So who you got at number 8?
At number 8, I have the St. Louis Cardinals at number 8. I was surprised when I look at the OOTP rankings, power rankings.
They have me 5th, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, what's going on?
And I'm like, okay.
I don't agree with it either, just for the record.
No, well, yeah. I mean, the Cardinals have been on the Cubs have been on a decent run. You guys didn't collapse completely after the Royce Lewis, but it's been overlooked because the Cubs have been so good. Really solid pitching staff, really great fielding. So the defensive side of the ball, I think you guys have it nailed. It's just the offense has struggled, and there's kind of a theme with me towards the top of this where the teams that can virtually guarantee scoring 6, 7, 8 runs a game are going to be up near the top of my rankings. But really good season from the Cardinals.
Fair enough.
So for me at number 8, I have the Orioles just a tick higher than Tim did. I've got them there. They haven't, as we mentioned, they haven't played, their best here lately, but you look at Nick Spence, Buster Bluth, and Andrew Vaughn, who Brendan picked up in the middle of the season. That's 3 really stud hitters, superstar hitters in that lineup, and then obviously you have other guys there like Will Smith. That Brainer-Zimmers trade to pick him up from the Angels, I think has proven to be a really shrewd move. So, lineup wise, up and down that lineup, I mean, they've got a tough lineup there. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that their starters have the 14th best ERA in the American League. I mean, it's almost unbelievable to think of it that way, when at the start of this season, even with the Jim Reed injury, you really felt like that Baltimore had a lot of depth there in pitching. And, maybe Brennan gave up a little too much of it during the season when he felt like he had depth to deal from. There could be a possibility that, something like the Seabold trade, maybe he regrets doing. But if he didn't make that trade, he doesn't ultimately end up with Andrew Vaughn either. So, maybe it's just a little bit different team than we kind of thought they were going to be, based on last year. But I still think it's a good squad. I still think, there's opportunity for them to hit their stride again here heading into the playoffs.
All right. And then for me at number 8, I kind of went crazy on these power rankings. I was looking not necessarily at where the standings are now, but more along the lines of how our team's playing down the stretch. And so I've actually dropped the Giants from number 5 on my list down to number 8. And it's because they are playing very poorly right now. Now, to you guys' point that you made earlier, they're losing a lot of one-run games. But the fact of the matter is they're still losing games. Whether you lose by 1 or you lose by 10, they've lost 8 out of their last 10. And they're in danger of losing the wild card spot that we thought that they had in hand. And they've got to figure things out, mostly offensively, in order to get their really good pitching staff a little bit more support so that they're not losing the one-run games, but they start winning the one-run games. So that's why I have them at number 8. And just a tick above them, I have my Cardinals at number 7. Again, based off of our performance lately. Now, I wish I could have taken at least 1 or 2 more games from the Reds, as I lost 4 out of the 6. But the fact of the matter is that our pitching staff is carrying us, and our offense is it's weird. It explodes at random times. Like, we'll score 12 runs randomly, and then in other times we'll get shut out, and it's just like, can we just score 5 runs a game instead of going on 2 extremes? But in order for us to get that wild card spot, we need our offense to do that in these last 7 games. But we are playing really well. We've won 7 of our last 10. We're on a 3-game winning streak after sweeping the Pirates. And hopefully we carry that momentum into our series with the Cubs and the Brewers to end it off. Now, again, like I said, it's going to be an uphill battle, and I think the Dodgers and Giants are going to be able to hold us off, but I would be ecstatic if we were able to get through this last week of the season with a wild card spot.
Yeah, I've actually got the Cardinals right here at 7 as well. So I've got them in the same slot there. And I'm not just saying this because we're on the podcast with you, Andrew, but I think knowing the injuries that your team has had to face, pitching side and then Royce Lewis, and for you to keep this team together, some of the moves you made, that bold move you made with Jeremy Frank. I mean, I was honest with you at the time. I was really surprised that you would move him at that point. And that's worked out pretty well for you. You still have. And
I will point out, as you mentioned that trade, Tom Shuey, the third baseman I got back in that deal, has made his major league debut with the Cardinals and has been one of my better offensive producers since the trade happened. So I am very happy with the return. And I haven't even gotten to Hank Bearden, who has put up, I think, a +4 WAR in AAA total over the season. I still have him potentially ready to slot into a rotation either next year or the year after. So I'm very happy with the trade because it helps improve the offense maybe just a little bit to kind of soften the blow of the Royce Lewis injury.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is, Shuey is somebody who, was a really good ad there. He was originally in the Reds farm system. I had traded him to the Angels, and I actually talked to Tom last offseason, potentially trying to get him back because I really liked him a lot. So, definitely has worked out adding him. You still have a starting rotation that's second in ERA in the NL. You have a bullpen that's second in the ERA in the NL. And I know ERA is what it is, but it's still some kind of indicator of performance. Those are, 2 solid spots to be in for a bullpen and a rotation. And that has continued to carry you even with the offense, having its ups and downs.
Absolutely.
I think the performance of them, to be honest with you, puts you right at the top of the conversation of GM of the year as far as I'm concerned right now.
I don't think I'd say that. I'm just happy to be in this conversation for a wild card spot, honestly.
Well, and you've had to work it to get here. I mean, it's like you've had more than your share of adversity.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're still in it the last week speaks a lot. It's a good team.
Which I'm very happy about. Like I said, I did not think that we would be able to handle the Royce Lewis injury. I thought we'd be out a couple weeks ago, honestly.
We're getting paid for saying all this, right?
You'll get the PayPal later.
Oh, you can start recording again.
Oh, wait. Oh, this didn't come from Brendan? Wow, thanks.
Oh, man.
Really? Well, remember the coin flip, because number 7 is the Dodgers for me.
Oh, wow.
So
did the coin flip decide your power rankings too?
Well, the coin flip was a little bit of a stage theatrical there, but this is where I was going back and forth in my rankings pretty much all afternoon. The Dodgers have been streaky. We talked about that on the last podcast. At home, they are 49-29. So really good. On the road, they're just barely below 500, but they've picked that up significantly in the last couple of months. They were pretty bad towards the first part of the season. I have some concern. I think they've got some empty offense in some places, but Rob Deere Jr. coming in second half has been incredible. I mean, he's third on the team in WAR. He hasn't even played half of the team's games, and this is not a team that platoons everywhere. So he's really made an impact. Freddie Peralta, really strong frontline pitcher. The fact that they are playing their games against San Diego in LA, I think give them a really good chance. Is really what I'm expecting is what's going to happen here for the wild card thing. That home record is going to matter. And they McKenzie, Dillard, Bellinger, Deere, as I mentioned before. Just a lot of slugging, a lot of ability to put runs on the board, and I think that's going to make the difference for them. That's why I put them 7. So you can have your quarterback.
All right, so who do you got at 6 then? As we sneak back around.
Who do I have at 6? I have this year's team of destiny, the Philadelphia Phillies. And I think I know what this is about. I was looking at a few things, and I was looking at their defensive setup. And I was looking at their ratings, and there is so much blue all over the place. And their pitching staff is almost exclusively ground ball. And I think those two things have helped them. And I get it. Their offense has been kind of a mixed bag, and they've really kind of struggled. And it feels like it's hey, let's just keep it close and let Bobby Orr win it kind of thing. And the thing that's also helped them, the defense has helped them too, is because they are 14th in the league in strikeouts. And that just kind of blew me away that they are still able to get such good production from their pitching staff they're leaning on that defense for so much help. But it's paying off, and defense is one of those things that I think don't go into slumps. And it's a tip of the cap to them that they've been able to do it. And I was looking at their month-by-month rankings. They were actually better at the beginning of the year and, picked it back up in the last couple of months. So I put them 6th.
Yeah, I actually have the Dodgers here at the number 6 spot. Tim brought up all of their offense, Rob Deere Jr. and everything. One of the guys who has really been key for them too is Juan Corcoran. In his second season, he came up last year as a pretty big time prospect for them. Might have been a little bit tough going as a youngster there at first, but he's really come on. I love that they picked up Darius McKenzie, D-Mac, earlier in the year. Had to give up quite a haul to the Brewers for that, but he is just a superstar there at shortstop. And, they've gotten back into it because here in August and September, they've gone 33-19. I mean, they have been playing really, really good baseball for an extended period of time. Now, a lot of those guys are young players. So, you could look at it one of two ways. Either, they're guys that aren't experienced and maybe they're going to fold under the pressure, or the old, they don't know what they don't know, and they're just out there playing ball and having the time of their lives. So that's why this last week's going to be really fun for a team like that.
Yeah, and once again, JR and I have the same team at the same spot. I also have the Dodgers at 6. But I will say they were this close to being out of a playoff picture completely, because at the end of August going into September, they were on a 9-game losing streak. But then they followed it up with a 10-game winning streak across 3 of their division rivals in Arizona, Colorado, and San Francisco. In the month of September, they are 6-0 against the Giants, which is the team that one of the teams that they were chasing in the wild card race. That is impressive. And that's why I have them here at number 6 above both of the other teams in that wild card race, the Cardinals and the Giants, because I think they are playing better baseball right now. At the beginning of September, it wasn't looking good, but you rip off 10 wins in a row and then they did stumble against Washington, but they split a series against Philly and then followed up with a sweep against the Giants. They are in control of their own destiny at this point, and right now, they're on the right side of the streakiness. Will it last until the end of the season? Remains to be seen. And then at number 5, this is where I've put the team of destiny, the Philadelphia Phillies.
Wow.
I'm giving them their credit now because it's just there's no way I can just deny it anymore. They are a really good team. They are playing some really great baseball, and it's just there's no explanation for it, really. But I finally have to give credit where credit is due. They are playing some really great baseball right now.
I cannot believe you have them at number 5.
I have them at number 5. I finally have to give them credit. I mean, I'm only one spot above where Tim had them at 6. So I just can't deny what they're doing anymore. They have a scary rotation. They have a 45 home run player in Bryce Harper, and they win ball games. It doesn't matter what their stats say. They may be bottom. Looking at their stats, they actually have a worse offense than the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. And we keep talking about the Cardinals offense holding them back. They have a worse pitching staff stat-wise than the Cardinals, but they're winning ball games. Like there's some magic going on in Philly, whether you call it the Bobby Orr effect or what have you. I just can't deny that they are playing really great baseball right now. It's unexplainable, but that's baseball.
Well, and to use another eMLB trademark, it's the fun differential.
Brendan's trademark, the fun differential. They are having fun over there in Philly, and I finally have to give credit where credit is due. We've been putting them at the bottom of our power rankings or outside of our power rankings forever. I'm just like, you know what? I'm putting them at 5 because
Cubs
they deserve
series is going to be awesome. I think.
That's the most likely. That's the most likely playoff series is going to be Cubs Phillies.
It's got to be magic when you're outperforming your Pythagorean record by 9 games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's. I keep saying it's unexplainable, inexplainable. I don't know whatever the word is. It can't be explained, but here they are, division winners. Third best record in the National League. They're just playing great baseball right now.
And Hebrew just raised the bar for all of us new GMs coming in. It's like, oh yeah, let's just win the division my first year here.
To be fair, they had a ton of money to work with coming into it that you and other new GMs don't have, like Diamondbacks, Oakland. not exactly the highest payrolls in the league.
But
So-
we did hire Mrs. Machado in Arizona to be our special events. She's vice president in charge of special events. So if we just keep her out of the fireworks locker, we'll be fine.
Do special events include listings on the injured list?
I can neither confirm nor deny. But our guys seem healthy.
There you go. That's what's important, right?
Oh, so for me at number 5, I do have the Giants here. I do still have them up toward the top. I still, like that rotation enough to keep them up there. I think, and Angie, you and I talked about it a little bit at the time when the trade deadline hit. I really think that Sean is going to regret not adding some more offense to help this team out. I mean, his one addition, Danny Jansen, in his time with San Francisco in 41 games, he's got an OPS plus of 62. I mean, he has not been good at all. And you take a look at up and down that batting order and their numbers in August and September. And, Michael Sean Kane had a really good August, but he's been, average player here in September. And a lot of the other guys are struggling big time. But all that being said, though, I still have a lot of faith in that rotation. There's just some superstar players there at the head of that rotation that can make some noise there in the playoffs.
Did you see that card that got dropped in the Discord? The 3-headed dog?
Yeah, yeah.
That ain't fluffy.
That ain't fluffy.
No.
That ain't cuddly.
No.
Not at all.
Absolutely. And I put him there too. I put him number 5 too for the exact same reason JR said. I worry about this team in the playoffs. They've got a .315 on base percentage as a team. I'm wondering where the runs are going to come from. But if anybody can win 2-1, that isn't named St. Louis.
They have a better chance than me. I mean, the names in my rotation don't scare you. They just somehow have been performing well. Candela, Ronson, and how do you pronounce the last name of that other?
Hoxie.
Hoxie.
Instant slump. I mean, it just
which makes it even more incredible that the Dodgers hung 16 on the Giants in an Ethan Candela start. Like, what in the world was that?
Candela has struggled the last 4 or 5 starts. And somebody said I think it was the Here's Why You're Wrong stream about maybe he's kind of hit a wall a little bit. And that might be.
Too many innings?
Yeah. It might be, but, him on a bad day is still pretty good. So I think that 16-run game was an outlier and just a matter of a bad situation just going worse. I wouldn't want to face them. I mean, they could they could sweep you in 4 games and only score 7 runs.
It's true.
It's that kind of team.
Yeah, very much so. So who you got, Tim, at number 4?
I have the Chicago Cubs. And as I said last week, the top 4, just kind of put them in a bag, and whoever comes out.
Did you use the coin flip for that one?
Yeah, no. That was 20-sided dice.
Got him right here.
Tremendous team. I mean, I'll say it again. Danny Smith Jr., the best player in the eMLB. But look at Kent Herbeck's numbers, and they're right up there with him. Really good team. There's a lot of ground ball and neutral pitchers on this club. They get the job done. The defense is more solid than spectacular. I think it's helped with the pitching. It's a good, not great pitching staff. Where I think they may struggle in the playoffs is they've got a couple, 3 guys in the bullpen that are very solid. 1 or 2 spots in that bullpen are questionable, and that could expose them come playoff time. But this is a really phenomenal team. And I think they're going to be around for a while, and they certainly have been great this season. So I'll put them fourth.
Yeah, I've got the Cubs 4 also. I definitely think that these top 4 teams are, the 4 elite teams. In eMLB, again, Danny Smith Jr. leading the way, the second best player in the National League Central. But I would say, as much as I would definitely put the Cubs in that 4 elite team category. I would say personally, I do still have them a good step or 2 behind the other 3 teams because of the pitching staff. As great as that offense is, and it is great. That is a murderer's row of offense there that the Cubs have. There's, to me, enough questions about that pitching staff that it holds them just a hair back, a step or 2 back from the other 3 teams at the top of this list, who I feel like are a lot more well-rounded. Still an elite team, still, obviously a great team that likely is going to hit that 100-win mark, but I would put them a step or 2 behind those 3 teams.
Yeah. Well, it's a clean sweep for the number 4 spot because that's where I've also got the Cubs. And you kind of touched on this, Tim. You said their defense is solid but not spectacular. I would actually argue that their defense is subpar. Looking at their defensive metrics individually, the only players that you can say have had a positive impact on their team defensively are Danny Smith Jr. in center and Charlie Moore at shortstop, who has actually only played about 20 games so far. He was a September call-up, I believe. And you could say Carson Kelly has been okay defensively, as well as George Costanza in the outfield, but a majority of their starting lineup have been detrimental to their defense. And I'm looking purely at zone rating on this. Brendan Rodgers, -7.8. Jackie Robertson left, -6.6. Daniel Cabrera in right, -6. And to have that kind of defense behind you, like I mentioned on the last episode, that JR and I have been talking about how the Cubs pitching is the reason that would hold them back from being a top team. And I argued last time that I believe it's actually their defense that's holding them back, because their pitching has actually been playing better than we anticipated, but they could have been even better if they had the defense to support them. They are 4th in the National League in fielding independent pitching, but they are 8th in runs allowed. And that defense is a big reason why. If they had a better defense, this team might have a better record than San Diego, who has the best record in baseball right now. But for those reasons, I have the Cubs at number 4. And then at number 3, jumping up, because I believe I had the Cubs at 3 last time and this team at 4, are the Los Angeles Angels, which is very unfortunate that they are in the same division as the Houston Astros, because they have a fantastic record right now. They've been battling for the top record in the league with the Astros all season, but they held the division lead for a few short weeks, and they just all season have been looking up at the Houston Astros. They are a well-rounded team. The addition of Jeremy Frank was a good one. He has pitched better in LA than he had in St. Louis, which I believe is a sigh of relief from Tom, because I was saying one of my reasonings for moving Frank was because I thought that his performance this season was more of the norm than his rookie season last year. But it looks like he's not pitched as well as his rookie season, but he's pitched better than he was prior to moving to LA. So you have to be happy about that move for LA. It looks like it was one of those rare win-win trades for both the Cardinals and the Angels, as both Frank and Shuey have been performing well in their respective teams. But as great as this team is, they seem to be just one step behind the Astros every step of the way this season, and that's why I have them at number 3.
Yeah, I've got the Angels at 3 also. It's a lot of the same reasons you mentioned. Tom, we kind of joke about it, but he always does a really great job of having a deep and talented bullpen, and he's got that again with this team. That he's got sort of probably a slightly above average rotation. I mean, the numbers kind of show that a little bit now with the Frank trade, kind of average, maybe slightly above average rotation, and that bullpen I think really helps kind of complement that along with a really tough offense. So again, it's kind of bad luck for them that they're probably going to end up playing in the wild card versus hosting a division series. But they're definitely going to be a tough out if they can make it through the wild card to the series round.
How bad do you have to feel as Houston? You're going to end up with the best record in the American League and have home field advantage throughout the playoffs, but your first round opponent is more than likely going to be the Angels.
Yeah.
I mean,
so if you just get through that first week of the playoffs, you're fine.
it just stinks that that it's going to end up that way, because that would have I would love to see that as the championship series, but the way that the wild card is set up with having to face the first seed, that's just the way it's got to be. Again, will be changed next season with the expansion team and expanding the playoffs. So this is the last season, hopefully, that the LA will have to deal with that, or Houston would have to deal with that. But I just think it's kind of funny that it's going to end up being that way. More than likely. No guarantees.
Still votes to be counted.
That's right.
Well, it took us a while to get on track, but I think we've now finally hit our groove. I picked the Angels as well. A lot of the same points that you both have brought up. I look at how similar they are in like lineup construction to Houston, and kind of the way the team is kind of built and is shaken out. They almost could be, like twins almost, but not quite. Houston just a little bit better in each of the categories. Defensively, they have struggled a bit this season. The starting pitching early on struggled. To JR's point, they've started to pick that back up, and now I think the Frank was a good piece late for them, because it gave them somebody to eat up some innings and get them to that bullpen. And shaving a couple of innings off that bullpen every series has really helped them. We can start the whole MVP debate at some point around Trout. But there's like 3 or 4 guys on this team that are just phenomenal. And at this level, it's kind of that 3 and 4 great players in the offense that are making the difference between them and the rest of the league. So, just a great team here. And so for number 2, I have Houston here. And again, it's a 1 and 1A for me. Consistent all year. I mean, all of their stat lines just chart straight across. Everything I've run, they've been consistent. They got one fly ball pitcher in Forrest Whitley. All the rest, ground ball, neutral, and the defense has been okay. I guess league average. And they're off. Oh, who was the leadoff hitter? I'm blanking.
Sammy Isla.
Yeah, Sammy Isla. I've been watching him like the last few sims, and I just love the production from him. Thinking he is a really great player. Grayson Rowland, I still think he is such a great catcher. This is just one of my favorite teams to watch, and just kind of obsess over their stat lines and stuff like that. Oh, and I forgot the piece de resistance, and I just looked at my notes. David Elvis is in the building, y'all. He is phenomenal.
You just named all three of his CCPs.
Yeah.
Isla, Rowe, and Elvis all in one sentence.
There's a reason I follow CCPs.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
just-
But you cannot discount it's not because of those three that his team is up.
Oh
there.
no.
Like you look at his lineup, he's got Seiya Suzuki that he brought over in the trade deadline. Yordan Alvarez has been putting up monster numbers all season.
Re-ranked champion.
And his bullpen is probably one of the best, if not the best bullpen in baseball, with Edwin Diaz, Dalbert Siri, Devin Freshwater, JD Hammer, all putting up solid numbers. Even Corbin Burns, who he flipped over to the bullpen, has been performing really well. He's not even in the starting rotation. As he was, I believe he was a starter at the beginning of the year.
I think you're right.
So you take all of those players, add them to the three great players that he has in his that you mentioned. That's why this team is here at the top of the list.
Oh yeah.
And that just kind of spoils it, as I also have Houston at number 2. So I'll just go ahead and add it up there. JR, you going to complete the trifecta?
I have the Padres at number 2.
Oh, he split it.
As Tim said, for me, these top 3 teams are super close, and the top 2 teams are, I don't know, whatever is closer than super close.
BFFs.
You take a look initially, and knowing that the Padres have won 10 in a row and have a record that's 3 games better than Houston, I almost would be willing to kind of go that route. San Diego has looked great. Now, their last 10 wins have all come against Colorado and Arizona, which, is a little bit different than those 10 wins were against some contending teams. But, again, you still have to win the games. I mean,
come on, Tim is
not
right
wrong.
there.
That's fine. Tim knows.
I mean, this Padres team is incredible. You take a look up and down that lineup. The Kims, obviously very talented to go with Tatis. Franmil Reyes is having his best offensive season probably of his career. And you got Bob Dowd, who was a 1.0 player who's kind of heading that rotation now.
He's leading the NL in ERA, by the way, ahead of Rodson, Candela, and Hoxley. Hoxie, not Hoxie.
So I mean, they've been incredible. They're 38-14 over August and September. So, I would probably, if you ask me who's playing the best right now, I could probably say San Diego. But I got them at number 2.
Well, I think that already tells us what we have at number 1. I believe myself and Tim have the Padres at 1, and JR has the Astros at 1. I'll go ahead and talk about the Padres. I've kept this theme throughout my entire list. It's who's playing the best right now. There's no one playing better than the Padres. Yes, they were against the Rockies and Diamondbacks, but the fact of the matter is, winning 10 games in a row is not easy. And the Padres have not only the best record over the last 10 games, as they've won all of them, they have the best record in baseball. So for that reason, they are my number 1 team in the power rankings. The same top 2 that I had last week. And last week I said, this is going to be your World Series matchup, and I am sticking to that.
And
at least this is the World Series I want to see. Come on.
Yeah.
Sorry, LA and Chicago. You just miss out.
And I mean, let's face it. Anybody in the playoffs this year would be an interesting and compelling story to make it all the way. But
okay, there would be interesting stories because of how good these teams at the top are. If other teams were to make the World Series. Like the story last year of the Nationals making it to the World Series and winning it all after being a team that struggled to win the division and then all of a sudden exploded at the right time. That was a great story. But at the beginning, when you were talking about it, you were expecting other teams to make the World Series.
Well, like like the Cubs and the Giants. It's like, I wonder how the Cubs going to get out enough people in that San Diego lineup to hold on. How are the Giants going to score enough runs against San Diego to make a difference?
Absolutely. Because San Diego and Houston are so balanced. They have both strong pitching and strong hitting on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everywhere you go. I mean, everything that we have talked about, the strengths and weaknesses of various teams, both San Diego and Houston can match them. And like I said before we went live, Fernando Tatis, the fourth best player on your team. That's
scary.
Wow. Yeah, just phenomenal team. And it's, I know short playoff series, anything can happen, but these teams have done a really good job.
All right, so JR, why do you have Houston here at number 1 instead of San Diego?
So there's a couple factors that went into this for me. Number one is the division they're in. The fact that they're, at 99 wins in a division that has 4 out of the 5 teams with a winning record, that has the Angels essentially as, whatever you want to call it, the 3rd or 4th best team in the league. The Mariners, who are a team that if you dropped them in either one of the other 2 divisions in the AL, I would argue they would have a stranglehold on that division if they were dropped into either of those 2 divisions. Really good team there. And even the Rangers, who, have been around 500 all season long and have been a perennial talented contender there. So the fact that they've done this in that division speaks volumes for me. They've been a consistent team, winning all season long. You take a look at their month by month records. There's no hiccup really in that team all season long. 13-11 in July is their worst month. Still a winning record. So they've been a consistent team all year, well-rounded team. Right now they're 1 home run short of 300 on the season, whereas the team that leads in home runs in the National League, the Dodgers, is at 261. They just have offense up and down that lineup. And even though the rotation doesn't have names necessarily, it's still one of the better ones in the AL, and just a lockdown bullpen. I mean, that bullpen has some serious pitchers in it that can lock a team down. I absolutely love the team that Ben has constructed here, after, saying it in the offseason that he was one of the losers of the offseason. So, I have to give him credit for, knowing what he had and feeling pretty confident in what he had coming back and the pieces that he could add to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe did both of us have Houston out of the playoffs in our predictions, I believe?
I still had them in. I think, I feel like I had the Angels win the division, but I had Houston, and I feel like
we need to look back. I can't remember where I put Texas.
Oh, you know what? I did have them out because my wild cards, I believe, were Seattle and Minnesota. So yeah,
I had 2 West teams as my wild card. I believe I said Seattle and Texas instead of Houston, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So we both look like fools right now.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, Tim probably remembers from watching the show. I mean, we both looked at Houston and we're like, man, Ben didn't do anything here in the offseason. He's going to regret that. Well,
yeah,
I regret saying that.
The re-rate,
and it wasn't just y'all. That was one of the questions as to why they hadn't made some of the moves. And
now I will say he did make a trade very early in the season, right? He brought over, who was it from Colorado?
He brought in Joel Machado, but he hasn't really performed that well. I mean, to be honest, I mean he hasn't pitched all that great.
It doesn't explain why they're at first.
That's true. Yeah. But the re-rate of Yordan Alvarez definitely helped.
Oh yeah, huge.
Yeah. So, well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Our final power rankings of the regular season, because the next time you will see us, we'll be talking about playoff baseball,
Playoffs.
and I am not. No, don't do an Aiden. Don't do an Aiden. So there you have it, though. Kind of mixed bag, unless you look at spots 3 and 4 across the board. I'm sure I'm going to hear it from Brendan leaving the Orioles outside of the top 10, but I'll deal with that. So let us know what you think of the power rankings. Did we get who do you think is the most right? We'll put that as our comments. What we want to see down in the comments. But any last thoughts as we wrap up this episode and begin the quest for the last week of the season playoff race?
It is a lot of fun. This is my favorite part of the year. This is my third eMLB playoffs that I have watched, and it is exciting to the point of I change my real life schedule so that I don't miss a stream.
Wow.
Kind of thing. Right, yeah. I love this league, and the playoffs just bring it out, and it's at game to game. The managers get to show their stuff, and it's not just, setting the file up right. It's actually making the moves in game, getting to watch them. It's awesome. So
yeah, I wish it didn't take so long to do all of the individual games, because we how Kamish has done it in the past is he streams all 7 potential games of the World Series, but all of the playoff series leading up to it is just quick sims at a time.
Yeah.
I wish we had the time to go through all of the playoff and see how the managers handle their teams in game throughout the playoffs, but it would just take way too much time to go through all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure all of the other GMs that are sitting outside of the playoffs are like, okay, can we pick this up so I can work on my off-season stuff?
Oh no, last year I was in a hurry because I wanted Ed in Winter League.
There you go.
and this year I'm in a hurry because I've got some redecorating to do. Let's just say in Arizona.
There you go.
Okay.
So I'm ready for that.
All right. So yeah, I definitely understand why we don't do as many game of the nights for the playoffs as playoff teams may want, but obviously they have other GMs that are like, all right, we can get through the playoffs. We want to get ready for next year, but definitely tune in. Go ahead.
I said with this year, the holiday season, right smack dab up against the playoffs.
Oh, that's true.
Something's got to give.
Yeah. But look forward to all of the World Series games taking place on stream for sure, as well as they will be streams that highlight all of the playoff series. We just won't see the specifics that go on within each individual game. But tune in Tuesday, Thursday, the last 2 sims of the regular season. We should see some great playoff chase baseball. And then following that up, I believe probably starting Sunday, we will start having some actual playoff baseball, which means we may have to record earlier than we usually do because we're recording this on a Monday. We might have to record on a weekend if we're going to predict the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, ooh, man, I might have to clear my schedule like Tim was saying. But once again, guys, go ahead, JR.
If you need us to write a note to the boss, let us know.
Yeah.
The
boss meaning my wife.
Right. The boss always means somebody's wife. Come on.
Exactly.
Right. Dear Mrs. Anjou.
All right. Well, once again, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the eMLB Insider. We kept it to about the same amount of time when it was just me and Tim. I was worried adding Tim and having all 3 of us that we would go over 2 hours, but we're under 2 hours this time.
Especially with my mouth. Yeah.
No, you just froze too many times. You weren't able to use the mouth as much, right? Anyway,
oh, man.
All right. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, turn on the notifications so you don't miss an episode of the eMLB Insider or Here's Why You're Wrong or Ahead of the Curve or any other content that we put up here on the YouTube channel. If you want to go back and look at prior games that we've done on Game of the Night or even the latest edition of the amateur draft, which is always a great time. The All-Star game is up there as well. And I believe we even have every single game from last year's World Series between the Orioles and the Nationals on this channel, so you can go back and see how the World Series goes from last year, and then kind of look forward to what we'll have in store this year. But for myself, Tim, and JR, thank you guys so much for watching, and let's get ready for some playoff baseball. Take care, everyone.
See ya.